BusyBox is the most popular micro Linux in IoT devices. We find them inside of cameras, we find them inside of routers, we find it inside of smart home devices. And the reason that you find it in all these places is, of course, one, is that it's free, right? And it's so tiny. How tiny is it? It's less than 1 meg. Think about that. I didn't say 1 gig. I said 1 meg. If you're out there and you're doing pen testing, hacking in IoT devices, you're going to run across this all the time.
Hey everyone, Yaniv Hoffman here, back with another video and back with the one and only Master Hacker, Occupy the Web. Welcome.
Thank you, Yaniv. It's always an honor to be asked to be back on your show. I always enjoy it, and I think we put together some pretty darn good videos together, so yeah. I'm looking forward to doing another one with you.
So if you touched it already, if you didn't see the last video me and Occupy the Web did, they are watching you through your Wi-Fi and you do not know about it. Here is the video on the screen. I will leave the link in the description. Watch it. It's a great video. And today we are going also to try to speak about a cool topic that many of you are interested and ask about. And it's sometimes called the Swiss Army of the embedded Linux, BusyBox, and OpenWRT. And maybe Occupy the Web, you take us through it, maybe explain also from the baseline what is BusyBox or OpenWRT for those who are not familiar with that, and then we can see some demo on how it works.
Okay, great. That sounds good. But before we start, I want to respond to some of the comments that came up on our last video. So maybe you can splice this in later. But there was some comments that people said, well, this was first developed, the Wi-Fi viewing back in 2009 at MIT. Yes, that's true. Okay. What's different now is that AI has made that capability available to anybody. All you need is an SDR or two, some antennas, a couple of antennas, and you need Dense Pose, which is an AI application that can run on any of the NVIDIA chips. That's what's different. So yes, it's been around for a while, but now it's available to us, to any of us who can put out $1,000 or so in equipment versus $100,000 of equipment. Right? That's what's changed. That's why that's important, is that means that your next door neighbor can put together a system, right? Yeah, law enforcement, the military, intelligence has been able to do that stuff for a long time. But now you and I can, and that also means that your next door neighbor can too. That's what's different. So in today's video, what we want to do is we want to look at a micro Linux. All right, we want to look at BusyBox. Why BusyBox? Because BusyBox is the most popular micro Linux in IoT devices. We find them inside of cameras, we find them inside of routers, we find it inside of smart home devices. And the reason that you find it in all these places is, of course, one, is that it's free, right? Because Linux is free and open source, and it's so tiny. How tiny is it? It's less than 1 meg, okay? In some installations, it's less than 1. Now think about that. I didn't say 1 gig. I said 1 meg. So we all are used to operating systems that can, 2 to 5 gigabytes, right? Well, here's an operating system that's less than 1 meg. That means it's 1,000th the size of, say, Microsoft Windows or Linux, what have you. It's 1,000th the size, right? That's small. And it makes it perfect for lots of applications where you have very small amounts of RAM and very small and not very powerful CPUs. And so if you're out there and you're doing pen testing, hacking in IoT devices, you're going to run across this all the time. if you've ever hacked into a camera or a router, you probably found yourself in the middle of BusyBox Linux, right? So BusyBox Linux it doesn't have all the capabilities of Linux. Obviously, it's only 1 meg, right? But it has all the key utilities that you need to function in Linux. So I've got Kali. This is Kali 2025-1. Okay. One of the things that we can do is that if we want to get some practice in using BusyBox or become familiar with it, we can just do it in Kali, right? Now, it's also available in OpenWRT. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with OpenWRT, OpenWRT is an open source project for creating small operating systems for routers and Wi-Fi. And so you can go to OpenWRT and download an operating system that's going to function as inside your router. So it can be firmware in your router. It can function inside of many different devices. If people aren't familiar with OpenWRT, let's take a look at it. OpenWRT project is a Linux operating system targeting embedded devices. Right? That's the key. Instead of trying to create a single static firmware, OpenWRT provides fully writable file system with package management. So this is what they do. You can go ahead and get a operating system for whatever device that you're trying to create, right? Those of you who are Mr. Robot fans, like me, Mr. Robot used OpenWRT to create a Phamtomcell. All right, so a Phamtomcell is simply a device that attracts, receives the messages, your cell messages, okay, coming from your phone, and then sends it through the internet. So for people who are living in remote places where there's not good internet access, the cell phone companies will provide, okay, a Phamtomcell, which then is used to take the cell signal, collect it, and send it through the internet so they don't have to use a cell tower. So essentially, it's a mini cell tower. Well, the way that Elliot created his Phamtomcell that allowed him to intercept and put malware into the FBI's phones, if you remember that episode, is he used OpenWRT. He basically created his own operating system, okay, with OpenWRT, and then built the capabilities that he wanted into that firmware. And then he uploaded it to the device, right? That, I think it was a Samsung Phamtomcell, and then was able to eavesdrop on the FBI's conversations and also upload malware to their systems, their phones.
So when OTW mentions a Phamtomcell, here is what's really happening behind the scene. A Phamtomcell, also known as a rogue base station or IMSI catcher, pretends to be a real cellular tower. Mobile phones are designed to connect to the strongest signal available. So when a hacker sets up one of these fake towers nearby, phones will automatically connect without the user even knowing. It's not that complicated, but don't try it at home. Now, the attacker uses something like OpenWRT and BusyBox on a custom device, often with a software-defined radio, to mimic how real towers operate. Once phones connect, the rogue tower can intercept metadata, text, messages, even downgrade the connection to force unencrypted 2G, making it easier to snoop or inject malware. In Mr. Robot, this concept is weaponized. So once FBI phones connect to the Phamtomcell, malware is pushed silently to gain access to their communications. Again, it's not science fiction, it's not invented by Mr. Robot. These techniques exist and are used by both security researchers and real-world surveillance teams.
So this is the OpenWRT project. I think a lot of people aren't familiar with it, right? And I want people to become familiar with it because it has the capability of creating your own operating system for a whole slew of embedded Linux devices, right? So if you were to go ahead and download one of their packages, you're going to end up with something that looks like this, okay? This is OpenWRT, all right? And look what they're using. They're using BusyBox, right? BusyBox, because the reason BusyBox is that it has much of the functionality, the basic functionality of Linux in under 1 meg. A single file under 1 meg. So if you want to go ahead, they have an x86 version, okay, that you can go ahead and download and create a virtual machine like I have here. You want to play with OpenWRT. Notice it says OpenWRT wireless freedom right here. So once again, it allows you to go ahead and create an operating system for routers and for wireless routers, wireless APs, right? It allows you to create a operating system for a Phamtomcell if you want. So lots of good things that you can do, including for smart lights, smart switches, a smart home device. Once again, 1 meg, tiny Linux. All right. Now, if you want to become familiar with it, and I suggest that you do. And once again, it's one more reason why, if you're going to study and be in cybersecurity, you really need to be familiar with Linux. And that's why I wrote Linux Basics for Hackers, which, by the way, just came out with the 2nd edition. So the 2nd edition's out there, and it's the #1 hacking book on Amazon right now. So if you're not familiar with Linux, then it's a good book to get started. If you are familiar with Linux, you might just want to put it on your shelf as a reference. If you're a Linux expert, don't buy it, okay? Because it's designed for beginners. It's designed for people who are starting out, right? So I get these people who are Linux experts who say, I didn't learn anything from you, but well, okay, it wasn't just designed for people who are new. But I also get lots of messages from people who say, I've been using Linux for years, but I learned things in that book that I didn't know because it's teaching Linux from a cybersecurity perspective, not from the perspective of a system administrator. It's designed to be used we try to show applications from the cyber industry. But here's, first of all, we have Kali, and we can just go and type BusyBox because it's built in. There it is, right? There is BusyBox, okay? And you can see down below here, okay? Also, let's just take a look at what it has to say. BusyBox is a multi-call binary. What does that mean? That means that it allows you to do many of the utilities from Linux, okay, all from a single binary, okay? The single binary is a multi-call binary that combines many common Unix utilities into a single executable. It's a single executable. That's amazing, right? And it allows you to run all of these commands that we're familiar with in Linux from a single executable. Most people will create a link to BusyBox for each function they wish to use, and BusyBox will act like whatever it was invoked as. What happens, what they're saying here is that you can go ahead and ask BusyBox to create symlinks. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Linux, this basically means that you type one command and it goes to another command. That's a symlink. So you said, I can go ahead and enter, a long command, all right, and then send it to a shorter command, and it can make things simpler. That's a symbolic link or symlink in Linux. So, for instance, we go over here. Let's go over to the OpenWRT, and we go let's go to CD, okay, to the binary directory, right? And then go ls-l. Okay, and look at what we see. What you see, okay, is that you're seeing all of these, what are typically binaries in Linux. Binaries are simply executable files. They're a file that can be executed and do something for you, right? So, like for instance, you can see here we have ping right here, ping6, ps, pwd, all these commands that we're familiar with, sleep, and it has a symlink to go to BusyBox. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you type sleep, it then goes ahead and goes to BusyBox and uses BusyBox to run that command, right? And it's seamless for you. You don't really see it. So we can go like say ping Google. And it pings Google. Because when I type the ping, it automatically goes to BusyBox and uses BusyBox to execute the ping. Mm-hmm. It's probably more information that most people need, but for people who are kind of, into Linux, it becomes kind of an important point, is that because it's all one executable, you create symlinks to all of the typical commands that you use in Linux. Now, over here in the Kali, all right, let's go over to this one. There aren't the symlinks there. Okay, so now if we want to use in Kali, okay, the symlinks aren't built in automatically. So to be able to run BusyBox commands, you have to first invoke BusyBox. You got to go ahead and say, hey, I want to use BusyBox, right? And then when you do that, all of your commands are going to be sent through BusyBox, right? So if I wanted to do, for instance, that ls-l that we just did, there it is, okay? It works. You can do a little bit of BusyBox in our Kali. So we can go, let's go BusyBox. All right, ifconfig, to get our network adapters, right? There it is. Right? So it works just like your Linux, but the only thing that really makes it different is that it's very small. So it has a limited number of utilities. All right. So if we go list, okay, that one's not there either. Hang on one second. Do BusyBox PS. All right. And then PS, and then we just go AUX like we did normally do with Linux, and go BusyBox PS AUX. And you can see all of the processes that are running on my machine. Right? Just like you would done normally in Kali, right? You do PS AUX, right? And there's all my processes. But it was BusyBox, I can do the same thing. All right, by just invoking BusyBox first, writing it first, and then going ahead and do PS AUX. All right. Now, if I go over to the OpenWRT, right, there I don't have to invoke, BusyBox. I don't have to type BusyBox first because it is BusyBox. So over there, I can just do PS AUX. Sometimes the commands are slightly different. Okay, here we go. Right there.
Oh. Yeah.
The commands are slightly different because to get this operating system so small, some of the capabilities of, say, things like PS are limited. Right? They're not as broad and have as many capabilities as you'll see in Linux in general. Right? So in this case, it told me that when I wanted to go do a PS AUX, which is what I normally do in Linux, right? It won't do that. But it will do a W, right? And that shows me the same thing. It doesn't have all the capabilities of a standard Linux, but it has most of them. So one of the things you might want to look at, okay, of course, is list, or let's go to, first of all, let's go to our bin, right? And then let's go ls-l, and then I'm going to pipe it through more so we can see, okay, and you can see it starts off, it's not using bash as a shell, right? That's also important to note. It's using a shell, a very tiny shell called bash, okay, very, very tiny shell. And so then you can see these are all the commands, okay, that are going to be available to me in BusyBox, natively on BusyBox, right? And you can see there's our executable right there, BusyBox. It's, in this case, what is this? Less than 1 meg, right? Yeah. Very small, very, very small. And so all of them, these are the commands that are going to be available to me. Now, you can add other utilities to BusyBox, right? You can add other utilities, but these are the ones that are built into it by default. It's a lot of the things that we use every day, but sometimes those utilities that we use every day, they don't have the full capabilities that we're used to, right? So let's go ahead and do a Q out of there, right? So let's see, pretty cool. And if you go ahead and are working in IoT, you're going to find BusyBox. If you're successful of getting inside the IoT device, you're likely to find BusyBox or some other tiny embedded Linux, right? The one you're going to run into most often is BusyBox.
Most people don't realize it, but behind many of your smart home devices, whether it's a security camera, router, or even a smart plug, lurks a tiny piece of software called BusyBox, often paired with OpenWRT. These tools are chosen because they are lightweight. BusyBox alone can fit in just 1 mega, making them perfect for low-resource IoT hardware. But here is the twist. That same simplicity makes them a goldmine for hackers. With access to a device running BusyBox or OpenWRT, a hacker isn't dealing with some obscure firmware. They are inside a familiar Linux environment with standard commands and tools. That means faster exploitation, easier automation, and the ability to pivot deeper into your network. From a hacker's point of view, it's like finding a backdoor, already propped open. So as an hacker, what are the use cases here? It's enough I get into the IoT smart device and then through the BusyBox I can navigate into the system?
Right. So once you're inside of the IoT device, right? And then you have control over this Linux. One of the things that you can do is you can start uploading your own software, right? And so you can either use it to navigate through the network, right? So you want to go ahead and take a look to see what's out there in terms of other systems, or you can go ahead and upload, shellcode, right? And put it in there. Now, so if the attacker has access inside of BusyBox, they have control over the system, and that's very powerful. This is how the big botnets are made, right? So when we start talking about these massive botnets, okay, that are used in DDoS attacks, what they're doing is they're taking control, usually through default passwords or simple passwords. That's what most of the botnets are built from, right? Because if you're going to build a million bot net, it's a lot of work to try to hack each one of them. Instead, most of them are built by simply looking for default passwords or simple passwords, and then using, BusyBox or whatever Linux is inside of them to be able to send out whatever the type of attack that they are attempting to do. If you're trying to do a DDoS attack, against a website, there's lots of things. Like, for instance, you can go in and do a wget, right? So wget, right? There's wget. There it is. You can go ahead and send out from a million of these devices and send out wgets to the website that's being attacked to create so much traffic on the site that basically it's DOS. It's a denial of service. This is what's going on in the real world in a botnet that's used for DOS attacks, is that they're going in, taking control of the IoT device, and then using it to be able to launch the attack. Oftentimes what they'll do is they'll put in shell code or reverse shell, okay, a reverse shell that calls back through the command and control infrastructure. Okay, so oftentimes, what happens is that to cover their tracks, they're using a command and control infrastructure that allows the bot master, the person who's controlling the botnet, to be able to send out one command that goes out to, say, all 1 million devices, and then controls them all simultaneously with one master. And so there's a lot of ways that you could do this, but probably the most simple way is simply to upload your own reverse shell onto each one of these devices. One of the things that is built into BusyBox is Netcat, right? So those of you who are familiar with Netcat, it's built into BusyBox. So this means that you can use Netcat to be able to make a connection, a TCP connection to another system. This can be powerful, right? This allows you to be able to make connections to other systems and control them indirectly or directly. But in any case, the most important thing, I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time on how to build a botnet because that might get you kicked off of YouTube. We don't want to you kicked off YouTube. Yeah. But if you're doing, say, a pen test of an IoT devices, you're likely, if you're successful getting in, you're likely to run into BusyBox, or there's a few others. But BusyBox is the most popular. This is all why it's so important to understand the basic commands of Linux and also understand the limitations of BusyBox. Because it's so small, there are some limitations of what you can actually do with it. But most of the basic commands that we all know of, ls-l, copy, cp for copy, ps for processes, these are all available to us. md for move, rm for rm for delete, right? grep is available to us. So these are, we can see that a limited subset of what's available to us. Let's try like uptime. Right? Sometimes uptime can be really useful once you're inside of a new system to see how long since it's been last rebooted. Right? And this one here has been up for 40 minutes. Right? One of the reasons that you want to know uptime is that it's also going to tell you when was the last time there was a update, a security update to the system. So if the system has been run continuously for 6 months, you know that there's been no patches in 6 months because they would need to reboot the system generally to be able to put in a patch. So uptime is one of those key commands that you're going to want to run once you're inside that system, right? So there's a lot of interesting things that we can do with BusyBox, but most importantly is to be able to be familiar with its strengths and weaknesses. One of the things is, as an attacker, you might want to go ahead and try the df command, right? Why df? Because now I'm going to see how much memory I have available on the system. Now, if there's no available RAM, because remember that the systems that these are on are really, really small. So BusyBox is running 1 meg, and it's not unusual that you'll see that the system that it's running on only has a few megs of total memory. So before you start trying to upload anything to it, you got to figure out if there's any space to be able to run that particular, be able to upload it and run it on that IoT device. So lots of things to keep in mind in IoT hacking. Or, it also applies, we say IoT, I'm talking about IP cameras, right? I'm talking about smart homes, I'm talking about routers. These are all using BusyBox. not always BusyBox, but one of the tiny Linuxes, BusyBox just is the most popular of them because it is so small. It is so small.
Great. And you have in HackerArise upcoming course about it, right? On IoT and smart home.
Well, we just ran recently an IoT hacking class. We looked at a lot of different IoT devices, and so we also had an IP camera hacking class, and many of the cameras that we got into in that class had BusyBox on them. So I can, you can testify that we're running into BusyBox on a lot of those cameras. We do have a class on smart home hacking coming up I think it's in January. And so once again, we'll be looking at trying to hack into a lot of the smart home IoT devices, whether that's, cameras and the switches, the doorbells, there's garage door openers. I'm finding one of the things that we do at Hackers Arise is that we do investigations for people who've been hacked. Okay? And so we're working on several cases right now. People come to us and they say, hey, I've been hacked. And can you help us, remediate it and find out who's hacking us? So this is something that we do as part of, our business. Yeah. And lately, we have been finding a really large number of people who have had their IoT devices hacked. That is the entry point for the hacker, because the IoT devices are so poorly secured that the hacker comes in from the IoT devices, and then those IoT devices are connected to the network of everything in the house, right? And sometimes connected to the Wi-Fi, which is the same network that your laptop and your phone are connected. So it's easy for the attacker to go from, say, a smart light bulb that they hacked, then they hack a smart light bulb and then go from there to your phone, your laptop, your desktop, what have you. And that's what we're seeing more and more of. We're working on two big cases right now where that's exactly what has happened, is that the hacker has come in from an IoT device. So sometimes people who are relatively new to our industry overlook the importance of IoT. They go, oh, who cares about a light bulb, right? Well, the light bulb is the foothold for the attacker to get into the network. Right. And this is becoming more and more the vector that the attackers are using to get into corporate and home networks to take over the entire network.
I agree. It's very interesting, and it's only the trend now is true of the IoT and smart homes. Yeah, it will only get worse, huh?
Well, it'll probably get worse because the IoT devices are so poorly secured. And, the big botnets take advantage of that. And of course, these hackers are taking advantage of it. We've seen cases where the hackers have come in through the IoT and taken over everything in the home. And then it drives the people crazy, literally drives them crazy, because everything is being controlled by somebody remotely in their home, and the more technologically advanced the home is, the scarier it becomes, because everything can be controlled by somebody remotely. And so I think it's really important as a pen tester to be familiar with these IoT devices. If you're going to be able to do a successful pen test, you need to test the IoT devices, not just test the server and the clients, because those are relatively well protected. Although, as we just saw, the SharePoint servers just got hacked around the world, right? From a deserialization attack, which is, deserialization is an attack that's been around for a long time, 15 years, and still we're seeing it being used against a Microsoft product. And apparently, a Chinese hacker group has taken control of a lot of government systems that were using SharePoint. But generally, those systems are relatively more secure. But the attackers now are always looking for the weakest point to enter. And IoTs are oftentimes the weakest element, okay, the least secure of the devices on the network. And don't forget that if an IoT device is being used in your home or your business, it is on your network, right? It's on a network.
Right.
It may be segmented, right? Which means it makes it a little harder for the attacker to traverse that segmented network to the primary network. But it's not impossible by any means. Once you have control of this BusyBox or whatever the Linux is inside the IoT device, I can take that and use that to be able to pivot to other systems on the network.
Okay. Right.
Also, I guess before we leave, let me just I wanted to also show things like Nslookup is available to us. All right, so
yeah, it's important.
Yeah, there we go. So we can do Nslookup, okay, for DNS, and let's go BusyBox. All right. These are slightly different versions of BusyBox, which might have something to do with it. Let's go wget, and then go HTTP.
Yeah, you can do an Nslookup on this.
It worked on the Kali system, no problem. All right, so we're able to use wget. We can also use the netcat. Right, so we can go ahead and just put in a IP address and a port, okay, and then try to connect to another machine that has netcat running. So, if we have a part of a botnet, part of a command and control center, we can use netcat to connect the various devices together. So netcat, if you just do netcat, it'll tell you that you need to go ahead and put in, here you can go put in an L, right, to listen mode. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, -L, and then tell it what port to listen to. Okay, so let's go -P, like that. -E, all right, and then in bash, like that. So now, when we go over to our OpenWRT, we can simply go ahead and connect to it. And now,
let's see. Oh,
so now what happens is I totally am in control of the other system, right? So I can do ls-l, I can do ifconfig and see that it's the other system that I'm on.
Mm-hmm.
So these are simple things that I can do with BusyBox. Even with its limited capabilities, I can make these connections. Of course, in a world where somebody's trying to create a botnet, one of the things they're probably going to want to do is to upload a reverse shell. Okay, and reverse shells can be really, really small as well, right? And so create a reverse shell that then allows them to connect to the system. This is a real simple connection. This is a TCP connection using netcat. Those of you who've out there and have a little bit of familiarity with Linux and hacking know what a netcat connection is. It's a real simple TCP connection. And it's built into nearly every Linux distribution. So it wasn't designed as a hacker tool. It was designed as a system administration tool, but it certainly can be used in the hacking situation to take control of the system. So in this case, in BusyBox, I just simply did the NC-L-P, the port number I wanted to open up, okay, for connections, and then I had to E for execute.
Oh,
right?
Execute.
-E. And then bin bash. So I'm executing bin bash, and then whoever comes in and connects to it has the bin bash. I can do a PS AUX, right? And there it is. Notice that I've sent out, in this case, I sent out bin bash. If it was two BusyBox systems connecting, I would want to send out the ash, okay, shell, not not the bash shell. But since I have it running on a Kali system, I can send out the bash shell.
So from routers to smart plugs, OpenWRT and BusyBox unlock the hidden command line behind every tech. It's lightweight, it's powerful, it's built for those who want to go deeper. So again, huge thanks for Master Hacker, Occupy the Web, for sharing his insight and time. Always a pleasure to learn from one of the best. And to you watching, if you find this interesting, drop a comment below, hit the like button. If you are not a subscriber, still, please do, and see you in the next video.